She remembered the heat before she understood what caused it. One moment, Katie Piper stepped onto a busy street in North London, sunlight bouncing off storefront windows. The next, a man rushed toward her with something cupped in his hand, his arm snapping forward in one fast motion. A splash hit her face and chest. It felt warm for a split second. Then it burned so violently, she thought her skin was sliding off. People heard her scream before they saw her fall. She dropped to the pavement, clawing at her face as the smell of chemicals filled the air. The world around her blurred through pain, and the acid began eating through her skin, eyelids, and clothing. Hours earlier, her life had looked nothing like this. She was 24, a model and aspiring television presenter who had left Hampshire to chase bigger opportunities in London. She had met a man named Daniel Lynch through Facebook just a few weeks before. He had presented himself as polite, attentive, and financially stable. It felt flattering at first, but the tone changed fast. Jealous messages, anger over small things, moments that made her uncomfortable. Then one night, he turned violent. He held her in a hotel room, assaulted her, and beat her before letting her go the next morning. She reported what happened to friends, but hadn't yet decided how far she would take it. Lynch, meanwhile, was already setting the next step in motion. He enlisted another man, Stefan Sylvester, to carry out an attack that would ruin her face and silence her. Lynch planned it down to the block, manipulating Katie with apologetic messages in the days after the assault, trying to pull her into a place of lowered guard. On March 31st, 2008, Katie sensed she needed space and stepped outside her home to get air. Lynch wasn't there. Sylvester was. He waited with a cup filled with industrial sulfuric acid, positioned so he could approach quickly and leave instantly. After the acid hit her, Katie staggered blindly into a nearby cafe. Customers froze as she begged for help. Her face was turning white and blistering, and her vision was already fading. A woman inside the shop guided her to a bathroom sink and ran cool water over her hands so she could splash her face, but the acid had already penetrated deep layers of skin. When paramedics reached her, they realized this wasn't a burn that could be treated with bandages. It was a life-threatening chemical injury. Katie was rushed to Chelsea and Westminster Hospital, where specialists began the process of neutralizing the acid and stabilizing her airway. The burns covered a significant portion of her face and chest. Her left eye was severely damaged. Her throat and lungs had been exposed to fumes that made every breath feel like inhaling fire. Doctors placed her in a medically induced coma as they assessed the extent of the injuries. Her family arrived not knowing whether she would survive the night. When she woke days later, she was surrounded by machines, dressings, and a face she could not recognize. The pain was constant and overwhelming. Nurses had to remind her not to touch her bandages because the slightest pressure could tear healing skin. She asked repeatedly whether she would be permanently disfigured, and doctors, wanting to be honest, told her the truth. The burns were profound, and recovery would be long, complex, and incomplete. Despite the trauma, Katie identified her attacker almost immediately from the memory of the moment he threw the acid. Police connected her statement to the earlier assault and quickly arrested Lynch. They traced Sylvester as well, building a case supported by surveillance footage, phone records, and the sequence of events leading up to the attack. For investigators, the brutality and planning were unmistakable. Katie's medical team moved carefully through the first stages of reconstruction. Her face required multiple operations to remove dead tissue and prepare for skin grafts. Surgeons used healthy skin from her back and legs to rebuild large areas of her face and chest. She needed a feeding tube. She struggled to see through swollen eyelids. Every procedure came with risk, but she stayed focused on the possibility of reclaiming parts of her life that were still within reach. Months passed. Her pain didn't disappear. It evolved. Skin grafts tightened as they healed, requiring more surgery to maintain movement. Her esophagus and airway needed treatment because the acid had scarred internal surfaces as well. But with every step forward, the question of identity remained. Her career had relied on her appearance. Her self-esteem had grown around the confidence she carried in her work. Now she had to rebuild all of it from the ground up. When Lynch went to trial, the courtroom saw evidence of his earlier violence and the messages he sent afterward. It became clear he had tried to control Katie through fear and humiliation, and then escalated to an attack designed to destroy her face permanently. Sylvester's role was undeniable as well. He had carried out the act exactly as Lynch intended. Both were convicted. Lynch received a life sentence with a minimum term of 16 years. Sylvester was sentenced to life with a minimum of 6. Katie's recovery continued long after the legal process ended. She endured more than 200 surgeries over the years, each one aimed at improving function or appearance. Her determination became a defining force in her life. She learned to navigate the world again with a face that bore the evidence of violence, but also the story of survival. She spoke publicly about what happened, not to relive the trauma, but to reclaim power from it. She founded the Katie Piper Foundation to support others living with burns and scars, offering resources she wished she had in those early months. Her story reached people around the world. It stood as proof that survival sometimes means rebuilding yourself piece by piece, living through pain that would break most people, and choosing to continue anyway. Katie never pretended the journey was easy. She described the days when the mirror felt unbearable and the days when she felt strong enough to face anything. Both were part of surviving. What happened to her was an act of cruelty designed to end her sense of self. Instead, she turned it into a fight for visibility, dignity, and hope for others walking the same path. Every surgery, every rehabilitation session, every public step forward became part of a life defined not by what was taken from her, but by what she chose to rebuild. Thank you for listening to Horrifying Survival Stories. Subscribe for more stories of those who faced the impossible and lived.